Welcome to another Telltale Books video. I'm Greg. I'm going to talk about a kind of forgotten novel from the early 1980s titled Dragonstar. We are Telltale Books, bringing you the best in literature, literary topics, and graphic design and bookmaking.
If you want to support us, you can find us on Etsy and Pango, where you can find gently used, rare, and even top quality used books.
And if you like this video, be sure to hit the like button, the subscribe button, and maybe even that bell to be notified when new videos go live.
Thanks for joining us.
Dragonstar is a novel written collaboratively by David Bischoff and Thomas F. Monteleone and published serially in 4 parts in Analog magazine from September to December 1981. The brief quick synopsis is Earth has gone out, pretty much colonized the solar system, and one of the outpost mining operations sees what's essentially a big dumb object, a great big thing entering the solar system, and it's definitely not a comet or an asteroid. It's definitely some kind of manufactured object. So they go to investigate, and the first people they send to investigate, a couple of miners, they get blasted by the meteor defense system of the ship, because of course you have to have some kind of thing to keep meteors from plunging through it if it's going to be out in space for a long time. Second expedition goes out, goes inside, and finds it's full of dinosaurs. Okay, it's a complete Jurassic environment inside, like an O'Neill space colony. And it's populated by dinosaurs, many of which are very aggressive carnivores, and most of the team that goes in at that time gets killed. So you have this mysterious object coming into this solar system from way, way out. It's filled with dinosaurs, and people want to find out more about it. And that's the setup of the novel. It moves on from there. My quick take review of the story is that it's a very good story. It's well written, enjoyable, got some tense moments to it. So it's got a lot of action to it. Not all of it just dinosaurs chomping people, but you get some of that, yes. And there is a greater mystery that they are investigating, which I'll get into later in a spoiler section. An enjoyable adventure, but being an analog novel, you can guess it's pretty hard science fiction. The writing style is very much traditional, hard science fiction, analog, astounding kind of writing. It's very well done, and the characters are good for what they need to be. I mean, this isn't something that gets deep into inner psyches or anything. So the characters are people doing their jobs, and they are interacting and within that framework where they don't have to be really, really deep characters, because you're really more interested in why the hell is this object out in space and what's it been doing out there for 160 million years. And within that, very well done. I'm going to give it that much. It is very, very well done. It's a competent science fiction adventure, hard science fiction, so there's a lot of techie talk in it. It is for somebody that likes their science fiction to actually have some science. But I don't think it's overdone. I think it's reasonably scientific. I don't think it goes to a level that the average person can't understand it. I just think there may be a little more technical jargon than what a lot of of people reading science fiction today are willing to get into, which is, I think that's sad, but is what it is. So the casual reader would probably not like this because it's going to be a little too scientific for a lot of people today. But for those who like science with their science fiction, this has got it plenty. And so I recommend it, though I'm not going to call it a top tale. I don't think it's that good. Like I say, it's pretty traditional. Doesn't break any new ground. Doesn't really blow my mind with the ideas. It's like Rendezvous with Rama, except the explorers walk inside and dinosaurs go crazy. Which makes it a lot more fun. And it is a fun book. I read through it very quickly. So to get a little deeper into this, and from here on out, there may be spoilers. So I'm going to try not to do too much, but I'm not going to guard myself too much. So if you haven't read it, I think you should. If you really like science fiction, if you're really a science fiction reader, you should track this down and read it. It's good. It's worth your time, even though it's not going to be one of your very favorite ever science fiction novels. So first of all, introduce you to David Bischoff, because neither I nor anybody else has been talking about David Bischoff. David F. Bischoff is how he signs his name to these books. He was born in Washington, D.C., December 15th, 1951. He died in Eugene, Oregon on March 19th, 2018. Kind of young, I think. His first published work was in March of 1975. He did a lot of collaborations with other writers, and he focused mainly on science fiction adventures and space opera. The other author, Thomas F. Monteleone, was born in Baltimore, Maryland, April 14th, 1946, and he's still living and writing. He's published something recently. He started writing in 1972 with book reviews for Amazing Stories. His first fiction was in 1973. His novels are described as undemanding adventures in the Science Fiction Encyclopedia. He's also written horror novels, and he edited the well-known Borderlands anthology series and runs Borderlands Press with his wife. How I came to do this, first of all. Dragonstar was published in Analog in 1981, way back when I was a subscriber to Analog, so I got all 4 parts, but I didn't read them back then. Honestly, I did not read this. I skipped over it. And I didn't save those issues of Analog. They disappeared. So I had to repurchase them, and I have all 4 of them. But the month of November has been Dinovember for a lot of other people on BookTube. And I normally don't join into those things. Not because I don't like them, but because I usually just don't have time to take on more reading than what I'm already scheduled to do for Telltale. By the time I learn of these events, I've already got my schedule set for the next 2 months, and there's just no room in it to fit in another whole novel usually. Somehow I did it this month, and I did it kind of at the last minute because it was in the middle of the month. I was watching a review of some Robert Sawyer novels, a series of them about intelligent dinosaurs, which was getting a good review. And I was thinking about it, and I thought, hey, wait a minute, isn't there another one kind of along those lines? And that was Dragonstar by David Bischoff. I thought of Dragonstar. I never read it, so I'm not sure. I looked it up, and sure enough, it is about dinosaurs out in space. It's a science fiction novel set in the future with dinosaurs. And it's Definitely different from the Robert Sawyer series, but it's dinosaurs in space. Okay, what do you want here? So I thought, if I got time, I want to try and cram that in and review it for November. So I'm doing this. I'm reviewing Dragonstar. It's on a Sunday, so it means it's also part of my art series. And I'm going to critique artwork related to Dragonstar. Okay. Now, first thing you need to know is Dragonstar was published in 4 parts in analog. It only got the cover on the September issue. This is the September issue. That cover is for Dragonstar. Okay. And then it appeared October, which has a cover for a George R. R. Martin story. Running out of places to put stuff here. I'm still not settled into my new thing, though. You can see I finally got art on the walls. The November issue of Analog has Petals of Rose by Mark Stiegler, which I remember reading that and liking Petals of Rose. So that's one I got to reread and report on one of these times. And then the December issue. This one also, The Trough is a Solitary Creature. I read that and enjoyed it. That was a good one. And the last part, 4th part of Dragonstar is in this issue. Now, Bischoff and Monteleone didn't stop there. They went on to publish that novel, but with revisions. And judging by the thickness of this, it's 291 pages. They expanded the story. So this is going to be, in a lot of ways, different from the analog appearance. Otherwise, it's the same novel, but retitled Day of the Dragonstar by Bischoff and Monteleone. I'll get to the artwork in a minute. They turned it into a series because even in the analog version, at the end, it's a complete story, but you could tell there was room left for coming back to it. And they did go back to it, but not in analog, rather in paperback. Night of the Dragonstar for Berkeley Books. And then for whatever reason, they switched over to Ace Books for the 3rd book, Dragonstar Destiny. So it's been expanded into a series, and I just got a hold of these paperbacks. I honestly didn't know about these until I looked up more information for this video and found out, hey, Dragonstar was turned into a whole trilogy. So I right away got a hold of these because I do want to read them. I liked Dragonstar enough that I want to read the whole series. So I've got them. I'll read them. I'll report on them. And yes, I am going to start with Day of the Dragonstar and talk about differences there. So then, as I was saying, this was the first appearance. Got the cover of Analog, which serials usually did have a cover illustration for the first part of the serial, and then, and the first part of the serial would be up at the front of the magazine, and then in the following magazines, the following parts are in the back of the magazine, and typically did not get the cover again. So this is the one and only analog cover relating to Dragonstar. And what, Analog had been switched over to Davis Publications in September of 1980 from Condé Nast. And the first thing Davis Publications did shortly after, I think with the January issue, if I'm not mistaken, with the January 1981 issue, they not only redesigned Analog, they redesigned Asimov's science fiction magazine, because Davis Publications published Asimov's science fiction magazine also. And they redesigned both of them. So you have the redesigned name, which I don't mind, but for whatever reason, and I looked up more on this artist, looked up online to see what other kinds of works he's done. One other work he did was this one for the George R. R. Martin story, The Next Month of Analog. and he did this, and he did a lot of other works, which I looked him up, and I like the guy's artwork. He does a really wonderful job on most of his artwork, except this one. I mean, it's okay, but there's just not much going on. And part of the problem I have with his graphic design, they put text over. You can barely make it out. If you look very carefully, there's a little tiny, like, shuttle-like spaceship behind the text. But you can barely figure that out. You have to really look at it. And then the ship itself, I mean, it's pretty much accurate to the way the ship is described. I mean, it's huge. It's like 300 kilometers long or something like that. 370 kilometers, I think it was. It's a huge spaceship. So, you know, the artist here is not being inaccurate, but he painted in a way that isn't all that tight, and it's just a big cylinder with a bunch of tubes coming out the back filling the cover, and you get nothing else in this illustration. I can imagine this same thing being done by somebody like Rick Sternbach or David Hardy and looking a whole lot better than this. And like I say, it's not that this artist is not a talented artist. So I kind of think something went on with the art direction that resulted in this really hideous cover, in my opinion. I don't like this cover. I don't like it at all. And, you know, but that's why I wanted to look up the artist before I started ripping on his work and calling him a bad artist, is that it's not necessarily his fault. And when I did look him up, his other artwork is awesome. So, you know, something went wrong with this cover, that it just didn't work out all that well. Or maybe this kind of a subject just isn't his kind of thing, because the other artwork I've seen by him is a little more character oriented, a little more fantasy, and a lot more detail. So something this simple and this spacey just is kind of outside of his style. So a combination of him being out of his element and whatever art direction went on, the cover of this issue, I feel, went wrong. Okay, and that can happen. Not all of them are great. And if you're doubting me, if you're saying, well, you know, there's nothing wrong with that illustration, well, take a look at the paperback version. Now, this one is done by an artist named Attila Hedja, which when I first started coming across this artist's work on book covers, I was thinking, that's got to be John Berkey. That looks so much like John Berkey. If you look at the brushwork in the illustration, you'll see where it's a lot like John Berkey. This one in particular, the way this spaceship is styled, almost reminds me of when Boris Vallejo has painted spaceships, like for Berserker and Gateway. But no, after I saw a number of this artist's covers, Attila Hedja, I think is how you pronounce the name, I started realizing this was a separate artist, and the style, while it reminds me a lot of Berkey and in some ways reminds me of Boris Vallejo's spaceships, it definitely is different and definitely has his own thing. His or her, I don't know. Attila, I'm not sure if that's male or female. So this illustrator isn't as famous as like John Berkey, Boris Vallejo, Rick Sternbach, but always did a really good job on these spaceship covers. And in this case, I think this cover is brilliant. You may take it to task for being a little inaccurate to the spaceship descriptions in the book, but there again, a lot of times that's art direction. Illustrators aren't always given the manuscript to read before they do illustrations. A lot of times they're just given a description, do a painting like this, and that's all they have to go on. So, you know, can't fault the illustrator if it's inaccurate, because it isn't always the illustrator's fault. But until Edge, it does beautiful work. I mean, if you overlook the things about this that make it feel a little inaccurate to the story, it's a really cool spaceship painting. I love it. It's a beautiful painting, beautiful illustration, and a very attractive cover. This is much nicer than this, in my opinion. Okay. I really shouldn't have to say that because I am a professional artist. It's my professional opinion, right? I am a professional artist, professional graphic designer, art director, creative director. I think I have the background to say it's a better cover. And then Night of the Dragonstar. I feel like this ship is closer to accurate to what the book describes for Dragonstar. And again, it's just the ship going past the moon. It could really be used to illustrate a large number of science fiction books. But it was used for this one. And they aren't crediting the artists, and I didn't do my homework and find out who the artist was. I'm not seeing a signature on the cover either. But I think it's a beautiful science fiction illustration. As a painting on the wall without the text, the top would be pretty empty, but it's an illustration meant to create a coherent layout with the text. So in this application, it works perfectly. It's a beautiful illustration. I love this one. And even the third one, which I think is, personally, I feel this is the weakest of the three, although in many ways it's cooler, is Dragonstar Destiny. I definitely do like this illustration. I just like the spaceship illustrations better, more personal preference than anything else. There's absolutely nothing wrong with this illustration. And this one is credited to Joe DeVito. An awesome illustration showing a Saurian engineer. Probably a spoiler a little bit. And so that's where I'll get into all the spoiler summary of the story. Although first I want to do a little bit more about the artwork here, critiquing the artwork. Back in the 1980s, and actually for many, many, many years, Analog and Asimov's had interior illustrations. Most of the science fiction magazines did. Fantasy and science fiction never did, but all the rest of them, almost all the rest of them did. And that's where you saw a lot of Virgil Finlay's work, a lot of Hannes Bach's work, and a lot of other artists that are really good, and many of them just aren't as seen, aren't as noted as the cover artists. But they should be, because they did beautiful work. And the illustrations for the interior of Analog by Val Leakey and Artifact. Artifact is a studio name for Val Leakey and her husband John. They did a lot of artwork for Analog back in the 1980s, and this is beautiful. This, I think, is my favorite artwork for Dragonstar. Mostly a character piece, but awesome. The rendering here, it's almost photographic. It's beautifully rendered. I love their style, that crisp kind of watercolor style they did. You don't see them anymore. Brilliant artists. I love their work. Definitely one of the best science fiction illustrators, and ones that did inspire me back, because I was in high school when this came out. 1981, I was still in high school. And they were inspiring me to want to be an artist, want to go into graphics. So, absolutely love that illustration. Anyway, getting deeper into the story, as I said, the initial contact was made by a couple of miners in a small craft. They went and they got vaporized by a meteor defense system. So a second ship was sent from the moon base, which had, I think, 8 people on the expedition, and they carefully took out the meteor defense system and landed and went inside of Dragonstar. They found a hatch, opened it, went inside, and right outside the hatch was like a lagoon, water, and a lot of herbivorous dinosaurs around the pool, which didn't last long because some carnivores saw this and came to the party. And 6 of the 8 of that team get chomped in half by the big dinosaurs. The other 2, a man and a woman, they kind of escape. And there's a little bit of a character thing going on here, which makes this more than just your average hard science fiction story. The woman on this expedition is the girlfriend of a guy who's, I believe he's a major, but he's high up at the Copernicus base on the moon, where this expedition had been sent out from. So the woman and the man are stranded. Okay, they're stranded inside Dragonstar, and the communications equipment is destroyed. Got chomped with the officer that was in charge of it. And there's huge carnivorous dinosaurs right by that hatch that they came in, so they can't get out. They're trapped inside. So they have to flee into the forest and try to hide from the dinosaurs, sleeping high up in trees where the carnivores can't reach them. And they can't contact the moon base to get a rescue team. But of course, the moon base does know something's wrong, and they send a second crew. And this one is much better armed, and they have more equipment. They go out there, they bring inside some wheeled vehicles and an ornithopter so that they can travel around, because they kind of know what to expect. They did get reports back of what's inside the Dragonstar, so they kind of know what to expect. And they got military people trained, and they got weapons. They're going in there. They can, and they have an electric field fence to keep the dinosaurs out of their camp that they set up after they dock and they go in. And they're in there trying to find any survivors, which of course they can't contact. They have to go out searching. So they send search parties out. In the meantime, the man and woman, they figure their safest bet is to go down the length of the ship to where the engines are, that they should be able to get into something where there's crew quarters of whoever built the ship and be safe from the dinosaurs. And going down there, major spoilers coming up, going down that way, they come across this very tall wall, but it's a wall built of materials inside the Dragonstar, so it's not stuff built with high tech. And some intelligent beings come out of the wall and capture them. The intelligent beings turn out to be the descendants of dinosaurs being cooped up in this cylinder for 160 million years. Some evolution has happened, and some of the dinosaurs became intelligent, and they are smaller. They're about human size. They walk on 2 feet, but they didn't develop metalworking, of course, because there's no metals. The whole thing is artificial. The only metal is the outside of the ship, so you can't find like iron ore and mine it inside this. So they can't develop all that technology. So they're still at a fairly low level of technology, but they are as intelligent as human beings. So these two, while they're there waiting to be rescued, they do communicate on a very basic level with these saurians. And eventually the new search party finds them as well, and they explain what's going on with the saurians. Now, during all this time, there's a guy that came on that third ship who is a terrorist. He's a member of a Middle Eastern terror organization, and they sent him as a spy, and he's been feeding them information, and he sabotages the ship so that now nobody can leave. They're all trapped there, and they can't communicate again. And the terrorists commandeer a cargo ship at the moon and force it to go out to the Dragonstar because they want to capture it, because everybody's thinking this Dragonstar is going to have faster than light engines, right? Came from another star. Well, end of the story, big revelation is that no, the Dragonstar was built in the solar system, put into orbit about the sun on a very large comet-style orbit. Okay, and left there. Don't know why. My pet theory is that whoever built it could see that the Earth was going to get hit and the dinosaurs obliterated, so they move them off into their own little world out in space to preserve them. And so then asteroid hits, kills off all the dinosaurs on Earth, and mammals ascend. Okay, that's my pet theory, but I don't know yet. That hasn't really been fully explained. All we know is that somebody built this and left it there in a very long orbit in the solar system and then left. But something happens when they go into the engine rooms and they're looking around. Something happens that one of the scientists with them identifies as some kind of tachyon transmission. A message has been sent out to whoever built this Dragonstar, and so that's where the analog story ends. Okay, the immediate problems are resolved. We figure out what's going on inside the Dragonstar. We don't really know who built it, but they're going to be coming and set you up for a sequel. It's enjoyable. It is really enjoyable. And like I say, it's very well written. It's a very competent science fiction adventure novel, but it's hard science fiction. So you better like science in your science fiction. And personally, I think that's a no-brainer. You're reading science fiction. If you don't want science, go read Jane Austen. Get out of science fiction if you don't like scientific jargon, if you don't like scientific ideas. I mean, most of science is speculative science. It's not real science. It is based off of real science, but with a book this old, 1981, things have changed. Since 1981, our knowledge of dinosaurs has changed, our knowledge of the universe has changed, so not everything in this book is going to be scientifically accurate anymore, and so that puts some of the science in books like this into the realm of fantasy. Personally, I'm not deep enough into science to be able to pick out any inaccuracies in this book, anything that is no longer scientifically accepted, but they may be there because it's more than 40 years old. Like 45 years old. But you don't have to have a PhD to read it. It's pretty straightforward. And everything is in a context where you understand what they're talking about. But yes, there is a heavy amount of scientific and technical jargon going on throughout the story. That doesn't bother me. You know, because writers like this, competent writers, they put that jargon in a context where you get basically what they're talking about. And so you're not in the dark. You know what they're talking about. So I very much enjoyed this book. And I'm glad I did this. I don't normally join in on those, you know, Sumerian September or Space Opera September or things like that. Rocket Summer. I usually skip those because I usually just don't have any time in my schedule to fit that stuff in. This one, because I remember Dragonstar and just some kind of spark went off in me that I really wanted to read this story. Mainly the fact that I made a comment on that Robert Sawyer video saying, does anybody know if it's any good? And 0 responses. It's like nobody has heard of this. Now I know it, but I never did read it till now. And I wish I would have read it back in 1981 because I would have enjoyed it. It's good. It is a good story. And I do recommend it if you can pick up a copy. Now, I don't think most people should bother trying to track down these original magazines. I mean, for me, I'm trying to get, well, I doubt I'll ever have every issue of Astounding and Analog, but I'm trying to get as many as I can. And so I bought a whole set, complete 1981 set of Analog. And I've got that, so I've got everything from 1981. That completes a section of my collection. And so I go to that level. But for everybody else, now, like I say, I haven't read these books at all. This one is an expanded version of what I just read, so pretty much the same story. I feel safe betting that this is going to be every bit as enjoyable as the original story that I just read. And this paperback was easy to get a hold of. I right away found somebody that had a really nice set of all 3 and bought it. The other 2 are also available, though not in the manner that I got them all 3 at once. And I don't know if the other 2 are as good, honestly. Never read them. But I will. I want to. And I want to start by rereading this story in this version. I think I'll enjoy it. I really do. It's my kind of thing, that hard science fiction adventure. That's really what I like most. Anyway, you got my recommendation on this. I think if you can track it down, you should read it. Oh, and this trilogy is available in ebook, so if you're an ebook reader, that's the easiest way to get the whole trilogy and read it. And I recommend it. I think you should. Give it a try. Good, enjoyable stories. It's not the new Dune. It's not going to be your very favorite science fiction book. It certainly wasn't even nominated for Hugo or Nebula back in 1981. But it's good. And I liked it. Anyway, if you've read Dragonstar, Day of the Dragonstar, the whole series, any of this stuff, or just know something about Bischoff or Monteleone that you want to share, please leave it in the comments section of the video. Come on back for all the other things we do. I don't know how quickly I'll get to the rest of the series, but I'm going to fit it in. Probably going to be a couple months before I get back to Day of the Dragonstar, at least a couple months. Probably looking at earliest March 2026. But come on back and join me for everything else I'm doing. I'm going through a lot of Stephen King. I'm getting ready to start reading Firestarter after I finish a story by Francis Stevens. All that kind of stuff is coming up. I hope you'll come back and join me. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and I'm going to be here.